When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Meta Show. Today is Saturday, March the 5th, 2022. I'm Brisc Rubal. I'm joined alongside the Mittani. You guys are fucking crazy, all right? I'm just going to start the stream with that. Like, we're not even past the pre-roll, and you already started a level 5 hype train. We're now at 120% of a level 5 hype train. People are throwing money at the stream. I think, boss, this is a good idea. I think we should do this
Holy
from now
crap,
on.
Natural just did 20. Like, this is,
Another
I think
20.
this is a good, I mean, hey man, if you guys want to start a level 5 hype train before we even begin in the pre-roll, I think it's cool because in the pre-roll, it gives us a chance to actually like interact and chat, because I feel bad when people throw money at the screen and I'm in the middle of some herfity blurf rant. And so, you know, if the money throwing happens early, we can give more. Wow. Jesus. Wow. You guys are digging Valley again.
Stop. They're addicted.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you guys missed us, Natural. That's just
right?
all of it. Wow. Okay. Well, certainly that is awesome, and we thank you. And a 456% level 5 hype train. You know, I'm fine with that becoming a meta show tradition. If we want to have the pre-roll throwdown, I think we can adapt to that. I think
the show starts when you hit a level 5 train. Period. That's how we do it. You want it to start faster? You better get the train up.
Oh boy. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so
it's been obviously we weren't on last week because Brisc was on a work trip to Alaska, and a lot of things have happened in the
just
last
a few
2
things
weeks.
have happened in the last 2 weeks, right? Just a bit.
Just a bit.
Now, I will say this: for the most part, we have done our best to be politics free on the Meta Show in real life and elsewhere. I'm expecting when we get to that point in the show later on, we're not going to be able to hold that up. So we would like to ask you guys, when we get to that portion of the show, when we talk about the current unpleasantness, everybody recognize there are two sides of the conflict. We got friends on both sides, and we're going to do our best to be as even-handed about it. But we are going to talk about it because it has a big potential impact on EVE Online, and that's what this show talks about. So,
and we will be calling it a war because it's a fucking war, right? Like you know, no politics, etc. We try to deal with all this, but you know, I'm not going to be dancing to Putin's tune or anything like that. But yeah, it is something that has very serious impact on a lot of our friends. We are a tremendous number of EVE players are from CIS nations. And so it's been very awkward in EVE, in World of Tanks, across the gaming community, wherever there's a large amount of people who are Russian speaking, be they Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian, all sorts of different nationalities are involved in this. And a lot of people over there play video games. And this has had a direct impact on basically everyone who interacts with Russian and Russian speaking and Ukrainian gamers all over the internet. So we're going to be diving into that because it's something that it's deeply unpleasant. It's something that we're going to try to handle as cautiously and as reasonably as we can. We're not going to be beating our chests and, you know, whatever. But it's something that we have to talk about because it has a direct impact on everything in EVE Online, as it does in any other international game. So we will get there, and we're going to dive into some other stuff first. But yeah, please do bear with us, guys. We are going to get to the ugly and necessary conversation.
All right. So to start the show, I want to acknowledge last night on Rampage Incorporated, Merkel Chen and Aminet and I did a very stupid thing. We took the one chip challenge. Now, this was a little controversial because as a politician, part of my job is trolling you people. So the two guys, Merk and Nam, took the challenge first while I faked it. And then later on in the show, I took the challenge myself. But I have to say, we had a good time. It was pretty funny. I'm going to show you right now. This was what Merc looked like when he took the challenge. Wait, let me get the center. There you go. He was not happy. He was not happy at all. It looks so fairly obscene, but it also looks very painful.
When you're saying the one chip challenge, now I am the boomer here. I'm not actually a boomer, but I'm going to play the role of the boomer here and assume that I'm not plugged into whatever it is that the kids these days, like he looks like this is like it's all the wrong kind of beautiful. Like he's doing a beautiful agony or something.
That's like, exactly what it is. So all right. So the one chip challenge, it makes these very super hot corn chips, or just like tortilla chips, or whatever you want to call them. They sell a number of different varieties, but they make one every year that is the hottest chip of all time. And they have a challenge where see how long you can go before you have to take a drink when you take this thing. Now, here is me live taking this, and they're going to pop it out and you guys can see it.
All right.
This is,
I see you've got a thing around your neck.
Look, I was ready to go. I had milk. I had this thing around my neck. I faked it in the beginning because it was a troll. It was funny, but I took it later. And this, I mean, you're going to watch me like in lots of pain, standing around. The chips are insane in terms of heat. Like, I think something like 2,000 or 2 million Scoville units, which is like the super hottest thing.
So is it like a ghost pepper or something?
It's Carolina Reaper and ghost pepper and Szechuan peppercorn all covering this thing. It's completely black looking, and it literally, like, it was the hottest thing that I had ever taken in my entire life. It was the hottest thing I've ever eaten in my life, and I like hot stuff. So we're all like, oh my God, we're sweating. Our faces turn red. You know, we're drinking milk. We're drinking all kinds of stuff, trying to survive this thing. And it was absolutely, absolutely crazy. Mrs. Brisc was there to kind of moderate the chat while we were all doing this, so she could make fun of us and stuff. And it was just a fun time. But I'll tell you, man, the eating of the chip itself was not as big a deal to me as this morning.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question, is like, what on earth is that going to do to your butthole? Right. So, like, you know,
it was bad. So 6 a.m. I wake up with this hit feeling in my stomach. And my wife rolls over and she's like, how you feeling, sport? And I'm like, I think I'm going to die right now. So I got up and I ran to the bathroom, and let me just say that if I ever wondered what it felt like being in Pompeii the day Vesuvius erupted, that's what my toilet felt like. For a 6-hour period from 6 a.m. until noon.
Jesus.
It was awful. It was the hardest. I mean, it was the worst that I've ever done. And I'll tell you, like, we finally got over it. It was funny because the guys, we were all talking, because a bunch of us took the challenge last night. We all did it together. A bunch of us were like, hey, you guys holding up? You all right? Everything is fine. And we were okay until like when Merc and Nam and I started at like 6 a.m. started like, oh my God, this is happening. This is Tuber Chippy. This is one chip. It only takes one chip. It only takes one chip. But they sell it in a plastic container that looks like a coffin with a bunch of skulls all over it. It explains what's going to happen to you when you take it. It's in a plastic wrapped thing. They tell you to use gloves to open it up so you don't get it on your fingers and then touch your face and shit.
My God.
So you do all that stuff, and like all the stories that I read online about people taking this and getting sick and stuff, it all seemed like they weren't prepared. So I had Tums, I had milk, I had ice cream, we had all this stuff. Merc and we had beer, we had a bunch of stuff ready to go. And I think we made it through okay. And I'll be honest, if they wanted me to do it again, I probably would, knowing now that it's not as bad as it was hyped up to be in terms of like chances of me physically dying, even though it hurt like a bitch coming and going. Going probably more, not gonna lie. So we had a good time last night. This is what we crazy people do for you folks in our space tribe. We have a good time, and we hurt ourselves on stream for your viewing pleasure.
That is just like watching the recordings of their faces. That was something else. Wow. Okay, well, I'm glad that you did that. We had so
and listen, let me tell you flat out, I would not tell
ever.
anyone to eat my ass today, because nobody deserves that kind of pain. Okay, I'm just saying, no eating of the ass today. Asher would never eat this. Cameron, you couldn't get it. Asher thinks mayonnaise is too hot. This would kill him. It's just not okay. He could not even do it. He wouldn't be able to do it. All right. So from the fun news, we're moving to kind of sad news, a little bit of sad news. And that is my boy, my friend, our former Karma Fleet member and bro, Extra Squishy, one of, in my opinion, the best Eve streamers in the game, because he puts out a good product that's fun and people like to watch it. It can be eclectic and kind of crazy, but I love Extra Squishy streams. I like it when he goes out and roams. Has decided that he's done with Eve. So F's in the chat for Extra Squishy. We respect you, brother. We're sorry that you're gone. Hopefully at some point you'll get the tug and we'll bring you back in. But I mean, flat out, he says, why did he quit?
This is
His
important.
play style was dead. How many times have we heard that story over the last couple of years, right? He can't solo PvP. Everything's expensive. Making's nerf. Risk averse meta has reached the peak. There's only so many Ishtars he can watch warp off before he gets frustrated. I mean, this guy was a one-man Hecate roam. He kept Jita Hecate prices up because he was constantly in them. And it's frustrating to me when we lose good players. It's frustrating when we lose good streamers too, because God knows streaming Eve is not an easy thing to do. And when you have people that have established audiences that have done a really good job, that are fun, that are funny to watch, that are good players.
It's really funny YouTube memes too, right? Like,
right. And he did a ton of funny shit.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I want to remind everybody, and I'm going to sort of leverage this to make a political point, which he is conveniently already making for us, is remember, under the Rattati administration, we are in the age of prosperity, and this age of prosperity has so much prosperity that we are losing one of Eve's most well-known, meme streamer PvP guys, because it turns out that it's actually not prosperity at all. And it is still, it's brutal out there, right? Like, the Imperium is doing okay. Various other entities are doing okay, I guess. And if you aren't part of an organized block that has a dedicated team of financial geniuses who are just there trying to pay the bills and keep things afloat, it's really rough out there. And I think that this is something, it was one of the top pieces of news in the last week. And I think it merits that because it's a canary in the mine shaft, right? Like it's a real refutation of the arguments from the Rattati administration that they have, brought prosperity and that everything is wonderful and everything is fine. Well, if that's the case, then why is this here? And it is tragic. There's so many play styles that have been messed with by the changes in the last couple of years. There's, that's a classic refrain of my play style has been removed, and it sucks to see. It was unnecessary. The CSM have, of course, been fighting the good fight for years now against a lot of this stuff. We saw some patch notes suggesting that some of the bad stuff was finally going to get walked back. We don't have the March patch yet. Maybe we'll get it on this upcoming Tuesday. Who knows? But it is... nobody can argue with the guy. It's one of those things. His last words are pretty. You don't have to worry about hearsay when it's last words, right? And if he's selling all this shit and he's out and he's saying it's because of this, we believe him. So
and that's part of the thing. Like, I mean, when you think about it, the number of solo streamers out there that are left, there aren't a ton. I mean, the ones that are out there, you'll typically see they're all generally doing the same thing. You see people doing abyssals, you see people doing scanning, but the old school days of a Chesser or our Extra Squishy going out and doing one-man roams, catching big stuff, killing things, showing people how to PvP over and over again, that meta is kind of dead. And it sucks because that used to be a big part of Eve. And there was a lot of people out there that enjoyed that kind of gameplay, and it just made it very hard. And I think what we've seen in the last year or so, and I think it's accelerated since the war ended, is a lot of the big groups are getting bigger. The small groups are joining the big groups because they feel like they have to, because they can't sustain their operations on their own, because all of the traditional ways that they had to create money and alliance wealth at the mid-level to small scale is just not there anymore. And it's easier and quicker and makes a lot more sense to be a big corporation and a big alliance than a big corporation and a small one. It just doesn't make sense anymore. And we're going to get to that in a minute, because one of the biggest alliances in the game has been steadily shrinking, while one of the biggest alliances in the game has gotten way bigger. So do we want to talk about that next, boss? We can go into the NullSec Power Hour and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the incredible shrinking test.
Here we go.
All right.
So, Test Alliance, please ignore. Founded May 12th, 2010, one of the largest at the time, and since time began, groups in the game. Look at this slope. Whoom. Corporations, whoom. Their SOV is staying the same because they're in outer passage and nobody wants it, but they're hemorrhaging people. And I think it's pretty amazing if you look at the number and quality of the folks that have left test since the end of the war. So let me show you that screen. Okay. Here is just the list of people who have left test since the war ended. All right.
Gosh, where are they going?
This entire list
going? Gosh,
all the way down here. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Boom, 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 boom. August 6th. There. To here. It's so far it goes down the screen. I gotta scroll the screen down so you can see a little bit more. There you see the most recent. No, you can't just sign a gem. All Keep Stars was the first group that left. Imperium Federation, IFED, that was the group that Kilo Alpha
brought over.
Over to Goons. That was during the war, and then everything above that, all of the rest of these left since the war. Now, that is 28 corporations. Now, some of these obviously are small corps. If you look here, right. I can point out. So, Vanguard Holdings, 3 people. These two guys, 3 people. This fake diva group, which I thought was funny, that was Sandrin pulled out. That was 1 dude, 3 here. But if you're also looking at the rest of these groups, you've got very big, very well-known folks in these in test. Look, you've got Black Omega Security. That's Carmen Gel's group. That's Suas's group. Former Goons. Now they're in Pandemic Horde. Spartan Vanguard, another big group.
Valcorsia's great, yeah.
There you go. They are in Pandemic Horde. 94 members, Standards Contracting, Pandemic Horde. Now, Eternity Pavilion left to go to Dracarys, which I thought was interesting. One of the few where they flip sides and are on our side now, which is good. Tropa, 550 wide members, goes to Horde. And we got over here, number 1, Villy's Corp. Mr. Villy, First Royal Fleet Corps, goes to Horde. Incognito Mood, 376 guys, goes to Horde. Her goes to Horde. Now, the former Brave Operations Lollipop Division, the bold guys, they went to PL, which is funny. But if you look at the numbers, okay, you look at the raw numbers. I added these up. Since the end of the war, Test has lost 3,808 pilots. 3,800, more than 3,800 pilots have left Test. Now, to put that in perspective, that is more than the total number, almost 1,000 more than the total number of players in PL. It is more than the total numbers in Slice. If every character that left Test went into one alliance, they would instantly be the 11th largest alliance in EVE Online. It's crazy. I'll show you the numbers right now.
I love
Number
this.
1, Goons, Horde, Fraternity, Test. Look at the Init and Test numbers here, by the way.
Wow.
This scares the shit out of me. At the height of the war, Init was down to about 5,000 characters. Since then, we have more than doubled our numbers. We are right now 119 characters away from taking the number 4 spot in EVE from Test Alliance.
Wow.
That is absolutely insane. And I got to give a big shout out to my boy Dark Shines, who is the leader of the initiative. He has taken over since Sister Bliss has been on hiatus. He has been doing a bang up job of recruiting, bringing in good talent, new players, getting them involved inside in it, getting them accustomed to what they're doing. We are finally no longer simply recruiting from the Goons blacklist. There weren't that many people on it. We had to go outside. But between picking up a lot of folks in former alliances that wanted a bigger experience, to having the chance to play with a lot of friends that have come back to the game, I have to say my hat is off to Dark Shines. I don't think there is a better person that could be leading in it right now. He has done amazing work, and I think he doesn't get enough credit from the larger EVE community for the stuff that he's done for the game. So we love you, Dark Shines. You are the best. But again, like thinking about, I mean, boss, 3,800 characters. I mean, 28 corporations. What does that signal to you?
I mean, it signals to me that the system is working and the strategy is doing exactly what I said it would do, and I'm delighted by it. Basically, zooming back out here, right? Like we made it very clear during the Great Rout that because Pappy believed their own bullshit and they invested very heavily, all of the legacy side of Pappy really did try to colonize Delve and Quarius. And so when we purged them with fire and began the healing of Mother Delve, they lost essentially everything that they had, which was great. And then they ran off to Outer Passage. And then in Outer Passage, they said, neener, nanny, nanny, boo, boo. Like you said you were going to chase us across the galaxy, and we went to the furthest part away from the galaxy into the deepest drone regions to hide behind Gobbins' skirt. And obviously we knew because Pappy had because I'm Pappy Snowden, as was said before, I am Pappy Snowden, that as a result, we had really good intel on what their intentions were. And it was not exactly, you need to be Pappy Snowden and have great intel to realize that Gobbins was always going to be planning on cannibalizing Test, which I think is great because a lot of the entities that he's taken are full of the kind of people that made Test. And so now they're in Horde. I fully support this project. I would really like to see Elfboy pick up a whole bunch more Test Corps into Horde. I think it's going to work out really well, particularly if he expands very quickly. But jokes aside, we made it very clear that if they actually tried to intervene in a place that wasn't hiding in Outer Passage, that we would be, down to fuck, right? And when they didn't, and I guess they insisted with their members that at any moment goons were going to come or whatever. But no, we said in public, we said, here's the thing, you guys can hide in Outer Passage. You come out here and you meddle around, we're going to try to murder you, and that's fine. Zone of Rot, Zone of Death. And the Zone of Rot, Zone of Death dichotomy has clearly been working. I see no reason to change our strategy. I'm very happy with this. Whenever you see Pappies cannibalizing Pappies, whenever you see Pappies, we're going to be talking about this a little bit later in the show, Pappies sort of face planting, trying to kill NPC dwellers and needing to call all of their banners because they couldn't even manage to take out a Fortizar without getting all of Pappy together. It's just good stuff. I don't normally like to talk about how Test is rotting away on the meta show, and we have a relatively slow in-game news week, right? There's a lot of out-of-game news. We're going to be getting to that. But this is sort of a point where we can point and laugh at Test because they've lost so much. It is accelerating. And one of the things that's interesting sort of geopolitically, not in-game geopolitically, is the fact that Horde and Fraternity have finalized their space swap. And this is something that has been in the works for several months. And I think it happened during our break last week. And so what you're seeing is Horde and Test both investing very heavily in the deep drones, right? And trying to establish an economic base out there and burrowing further into the drones, further away from the Imperium. They are about as far as they can physically get, geographically get from us. And I'm fine with that because, you know, you must have combat. You must have some degree of NPC space in your own territory, at least in my world. I like war. I like our people fighting. I like our people getting attacked. NPC delve is something that keeps our people strong because it forces them to stay on their toes. And personally, seeing the main force of the core of PISP go cowered out, hiding in the deep drones and burrowing further in the deep drones in order to try to get away with us while they're losing all of their talent and just sort of pissing and shitting themselves is fantastic. I really, no complaints. And if you guys have a problem with me calling you funny names again, you should be used to it after losing a war over a course of a year and a half when you had the entire galaxy on your side. If that bothers you, please do leave the Zone of Rot and come at us here in the Imperium. We're happy. We're waiting. There's a lot more to the video game EVE Online than hiding in the drone regions. But, you know, hey, whatever. Either way, don't interrupt your enemy when they're making mistakes. This policy is wonderful. Please recruit more test corps goblins. It's going to work out great.
And I mean, that's the bottom line. Like, if you look at that, we have some funny memes that I want to throw up here. As the boss mentioned here, they made a big announcement. They're expanding and they're changing their staging. They are moving to MJ Tech 5 in Paragon Falls. No longer will it be R10 and the Clava Lava Lava expanse. They are now in Paragon Falls. But I love this one. This was one of my favorite ones here. Actually, let me get you this one first. Horde is expanding. Will be bigger than ever. And I mean, it's true, because if you look at the numbers, every time a group leaves test, they go to Horde. I mean, it's like literally, other than the bold guys that went to PL, which is another funny thing.
And that one corp that went to Dracarys, but that was in December. Yeah. Right.
And I think that was more of a, we don't want to leave our space kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's insane to me that Gobbins, I mean, if you want to say, if anybody won the war besides us, because obviously we won it.
We won.
Sorry, we're still
and
here.
We'll never, ever, ever, ever let anyone in Pappy forget it. Don't worry.
Right. And it was talking about like fraternity won the war because they didn't lose a lot of stuff. That, I mean, to a certain extent, that's true, but they weren't really that involved. But for a group that was in the front end, like face tanking the war, the one group on the Pappy side that can say that they came out of this better than they started was Horde. They let Test and the Legacy guys meat shield the shit out of the war. They came in, they got the content they wanted when they wanted it. And now, after the war ends, Villy accepts all the blame and the failure. Gobbins walks away scot-free, and he's cherry picking every group that he wants out of all the leftover Pappies. If he wants them, they're his. And so he just decides what he wants to do and where he wants to go.
Pick of the Pappies. He gets the pick of the litter.
I know. I mean, and yes, it's like trying to figure out which apple is least rotten in the barrel to eat. But still, you know, you can eat a lot of rotten apples and you'll be fine. I like this. This was one of the funny things that I saw on Reddit the other day. It says, "Hey, Dad, wow, Dad, you made a pre-May. Yep, first thing I'm ever made that I'm ever proud of." And then, you know, he little sad-faced chortling there. Kind of makes him sad. That kind of makes me laugh. But I mean, the bottom line is we're still talking about what happened at the end of the war, and the result has been we've seen a changing geopolitical scape in EVE. We've seen different groups moving around, and in the first major move, that's NC.PL, PanFam, or I believe as the groups were calling it, PanFam outside of Horde, Poo. PandaFam outside of Horde, Poo.
That's right.
That they decided they were going to go up, and they did their big fight in Venal. They went to Venal. We were all looking at this was about 2 months ago. We're all looking around like, what the fuck are you doing? The war, Tess was down in the south. They were in Faith Abylis, and it moved to Esoteria, and we cleared out the region and dropped a Keepstar and DTAC P, the old Esoteria home space of Test, and we had a good thing. We were fighting fire down there, and that was where the action was for about a solid month or so. And we hear, oh, NC Dot and PL, they're going to do this big deployment. Where are they going? They're going to Venal. Okay. And so what did they do? They went up to Venal and they bullied around Boss Alliance, who gave as good as they got. And I mean, finally, and I'll pull this up now. I want to show you guys, as these guys were arguing, and I think it's kind of funny because it's true. The Venal War was Pappy's first successful war, right? Because they got the gang back together. If you look at some of these timers, I mean, you're looking at these timers, like the battle reports you show up. Who's on there? NC, PL, Test, Hort. I mean, these numbers aren't, solid, but it's all the same for Pappy's doing all of these big fights. And then I have to laugh because down here, February 24th was the QHJ Fortizar, their armor defense. That was the boss staging structure. You get this false flag nonsense from Gobbins, basically arguing that because Boss asked Init and other groups if we would be willing to come up and fight, because consistently NCPL was putting 300 plus guys in fleets with caps fighting against a tiny alliance. I mean, look, I'll pull the alliance numbers up here. Where's Boss? Where is Boss? Where is Boss? Right there. 862 people. They have 862 people. I mean, NC Dot 4390, PL 2590, and then of course you've got Horde 28,000 and Test up there with 11. It was a complete bullying of this small mid-size alliance that had been living in Venal, and NC and PL couldn't even do it themselves. They had to fake some nonsense of like, oh, you guys, you finally asked this Imperium to come help you, so now we can bring all of our guys. And it was just an excuse to get content. They had nothing better to do, and they said, hey, what?
I think there had been an Init involvement relatively early in the Venal campaign, because Init is on the southwestern side of the galaxy, and it's relatively easy to fire north up to Venal if you live in Fountain and you've got Cloud Ring as your front yard to just go on up there. So it is kind of funny to see Elfboy pull out because, again, like I said, Init had been involved in some of these earlier Venal battle reports, I think, before the one that Elfboy started whining about. But it's just, there are a few things to pick out from this. We were all shocked when we saw NCPL go to Venal, but it was potentially like a, hey, let's get back on our feet. Let's shake the dust off and we'll beat up on some NPC dwellers. But the two things that surprised me, of course, was how well Boss resisted. Right? Like, these guys put up an incredible fight, and they are probably still going to be putting up an incredible fight because it's NPC space. So once you blow up their staging Fortizar, they just go back to staging in the NPC stations, because that's how the game works. And the second part, besides, credit to Boss for all of this, is I got to give credit to Dunk Dingle and Brave, which is not something I expected that I would say, but like, so far, the only group of PISP, the only group out of the Vietnam War era PISP that was willing to actually say, you know what? I don't want to be a PISP anymore. I don't want to be a Pappy. I don't want to be part of this marathon train wreck of Chuckle Fox or whatever it is that Gobbins has got going on over there. And Brave turned around and started shooting the people that they had been flying with for a long time on the side of Boss. It wasn't like an Imperium op. It wasn't anything. Brave on their own said, fuck this noise. We don't want to be part of PISP anymore. And, I'm not going to be all like, oh, forgive and forget and whatever, but like, that's the kind of thing you would actually want to see. If you have all of these Pappies together, and for so long since the war ended in August, the Pappies have been saying, oh, we're not Pappies anymore. Oh, whatever. And then this Venal thing happened. Vince stubs his toe in Venal. And then suddenly they get the band back together. The only way to show that you're not in PISP anymore is to shoot PISP. So credit to Brave and credit to Dunk for actually putting a line in the sand and letting fly on Vince and these idiots. So, that was interesting. That was very interesting.
So I got to say, if you are NCPL, you probably are like, oh, this is interesting. why didn't we steamroll these guys faster than we could, than we should? I mean, as we should have, because we are 10 times as many players and we have a super cap fleet and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting because there was a good story. Let me see if I can pull up the story here from, I got to find it. Anyway, I'll go look for it right now while we're chatting. But there was a story from a new player who's in NC Dot.
Oh, that's
now,
right.
Did you hear that correctly? I mean, I was like, wait a second. Here it is. I got the line. An NPC or a New Bros view of the Venal War. NC Dot line member New Bro. When the hell did NC Dot start recruiting new players? And I had never heard of this before. This was the first. I mean, this, if there is any group that is the old school elitists, even more than PL is, it was NC Dot. This is evolution. This is the pre-beta guys that have been playing the game since Bob and before that, and these are the groups that used to have like skill point like limits. You had to have at least 30 million skill points to even apply, and you had to have a kill board, and they were the kill board hardcore guys, and they cared about all this stuff, and they didn't recruit new players. They had no time to teach you how to play the game. If you want to be with us, if you want to be elite, sweetie, you need two things. One, you need your own Titan, and you need a hot pocket. That's how you got into NC Dot back in the day. Now, I guess they're letting in anybody. I was surprised. And it's interesting to hear, like, so when you're here, like, when we got the first ping of the war, I asked my corp leadership, who is in Venal? They replied, I don't know. A couple weeks later, so why are we here? Oh, we're just here for content. We want to have something to shoot at in the evening, and Venal's close to home. Okay? Like, the whole concept that NC Dot, Vince and Lady Scarlet, and all the guys that have been through that corporation and through that alliance over the years, that they needed a fun content deployment to help train their FCs. The whole concept of that, I just find completely and flabbergastingly hilarious.
It was a massive display of weakness. I mean, basically that entire deployment was, the meme of the guy sticking a stick in his own bicycle and then he falls down or whatever. It was just exactly that. Vince goes to Venal and trips over the handlebars. Like I do think it's interesting that the guy from Recon, first of all, newbies in nullsec are great. Like even if NC Dot is turning around and deciding to not be elite and let newbies in, I think that's a good thing. I think it's also super funny that the guys in Recon ended up choosing not to join the glorified Jackdaw fleet and chose to go to NC Dot, because why would you join the Jackdaw fleet? I think they got to see a lot of the way that the Jackdaw fleet worked during the Vietnam War. So that was interesting. We normally speaking in EVE Online, we wouldn't be spending so much time on this, but it's quite significant that strategically speaking, this took them more than a month, maybe
5 weeks. I think it was
5 weeks.
The total amount of time.
And you have to call, and Boss and them did the right thing, is that when they finally got everybody together and said, oh, the Imperium turned up and let's get everybody together to help Vince, they just hard blue balled them, right? Like, okay, you got 900 people together to kill this fort. Congratulations. I hope you feel special.
Have fun. We're moving our stuff to the station.
Yeah, to be fair, you don't know the strength of your fighting forces until you deploy them and you go out there. But what was the main thing that was significant about this from a big picture perspective was not only Boss being way stronger than people thought, Volta was there too. I don't want to say it was just Boss. You had those guys, the fact that Brave actually decided that they didn't want to be part of PISP anymore, and the fact that they had to get everybody together to be able to handle this is just, maybe they'll fix their shit. But it was very like a whoa. Like if you would ask me 5 weeks ago if they were going to have any trouble with this, I would have said they weren't going to have any trouble with this, and they will sort of have a negative PR reaction. Like, people are going to say what they're saying. They're going to say, these guys are bullying NPC dwellers for no big reason, and this is why people don't like big blocks, because they do things like this. But it was expected to be over pretty quickly, and that the Pappies would at least be able to take out a staging fort. But some innovative tactics on the part of the boss guys and the other NPC dwellers there, and just a sort of a big trip and fall moment. So now we're all sort of all eyes. I don't know if they're going to stay in Venal and do something, if they're going to try to get ready to deploy somewhere else, if the boss guys are going to start getting ready to fight back. We'll have to see. But I didn't expect it to be a theater that would be taken seriously 5 weeks in. So here we are.
So a couple other things from this post that I want to highlight, and then we're going to move on to the Ukraine Russia talk. So first, I love this dude. Frankly, I hope this guy doesn't get kicked for posting this, because this was a great post. It was very interesting to see from our perspective what somebody like this in NC Dot thinks about stuff. I'm sure he's been pulled aside and talked to and said, "We're NC Dot, we don't do things like this." But it was interesting. So he says, first off, why is Tess fighting with us? I wasn't there in Delve, so he wasn't even here during the war. I don't fully understand the extent of our relationship, but they're no PL either. NCPL is a thing, and that much I do know. But Tess just seems like a pity partner who wanted to win with us because we had lost with them. Maybe they wanted a bit of content. Maybe they have their eyes on that space, or maybe Big Boss Daddy Vince personally invited them. I have no idea. That I thought was funny. Wow. Then he also talks about Horde. There's Horde. They were conspicuously absent, and it was interesting to see how the moment Init Serbs landed on grid, and I wasn't in that fight, I missed it, for the final armor timer, Horde starts pinging. So I guess that was like they were waiting for us, and as soon as we come, then they have an excuse to get in there. But I have to laugh. The other thing, there was a comment made in the thread by Mastrov Glengoski, who says, I fly frequently with an NCFC, and the number of new bros or people with limited knowledge is quite numerous. The whole NC is elite meme is a meme. They're no longer like that. And as long as you pass the application, you can get in most cores with no problem. That's crazy to me. Like, that just is, that kind of blows my mind. And I guess everybody has to do it now, but damn, the idea that these guys are no longer the elite boogeymen of the past is interesting.
I think it's healthy for the game in general for people to accept the fact that new players can make an impact in EVE and nullsec on the first day that they've installed the game. It's one of the reasons why the Imperium is what it is today and what Goonswarm is what it is today. It's about effort and cleverness, and that's one of the things that makes the sandbox so appealing. If you are clever and if you have good support, you can find a way to run rings around older players as long as you get with the right crew. So yeah, that is fascinating. Okay.
All right.
All right. Are we gonna dive into the ugly stuff?
We are. So we're gonna go. Our top story is basically, the impact of real life events on EVE Online, because I think this is something that we have to highlight, because I don't think it's something that a lot of the other game companies have to deal with, but CCP and those of us who play EVE do. So our top story of the week is the unpleasantness that's occurring right now in Eastern Europe. Now, I know it's weird that we are waiting to this point where we got 15 minutes left in the show to talk about this, but this is a pretty big deal. And I think the first thing that everybody needs to realize is EVE is an 19-year-old game. We have been through many, many conflicts in the past. There have been multiple wars during the time that EVE has been around. If you recall, 2003, when the game started, the United States was in the middle of a big war in Iraq. The global war on terror was a thing. We've seen lots of actions in Syria. We've seen them in the Middle East. We've seen wars in Afghanistan. We've seen fighting in Africa. But this is the first time that we've seen a major conflict between two groups of very important EVE players. The Russian community is huge in EVE Online. It's probably the fifth largest behind like the United States, the UK, Germany. I'd say Russia's probably either number 4 or number 5. And the Ukrainians are probably in the top 20. Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of data. The last data that I saw was from 2008, so it's ancient. But I think it had Russia in 5th as the 5th largest. And I'm sure it's probably the same now. We have storied groups in EVE Online: Red Alliance, Legion of Exdeath, many other famous players. We've got our groups now. We've got Dodger and a lot of different folks. A lot of groups have a core of players that are either Russian or Ukrainian. And the result of the fighting that's going on right now has, I think, put a lot of pressure on the game. Now, I can't say for sure that this is what's causing it, but if you go ahead, you look at the EVE offline numbers for the last couple of weeks. So you look at, this is last month. Mm. The average was about 20,000 players. The weekend of the 19th and 20th, which was Saturday and Sunday of February, we hit over 30,000 in the PCU, peak numbers. Okay. Fast forward to the next weekend, which is after the invasion began. The invasion began properly on the 24th, on Thursday, the 24th. We're down almost 4,000 players, peak concurrent users that weekend. And since then, the numbers have been relatively low. So if you want to look here, we're talking 19,000 player average. Even on the weekends, it's not getting that much higher above 27. Now, did anything else happen in that time period? Yes, Elden Ring came out. That was a very big game. It was something that a lot of players were looking at. But I'll tell you, I've played it. I'm not a fan. I know a lot of people love this game. It's not an EVE-like game. It is a Souls game. It is very hard. It is designed, it feels to me more like a console Twitch kind of game than it does like an RPG. And obviously, when there's not a lot going on in EVE, and right now, other than what was happening in Venal that we just talked about, and some of the other content deployments, we've not seen any real major fighting in EVE for a couple of months. So I can see other people taking a break to go play the game. But when there's a major war, and as part of sanctions, you are seeing gaming companies and other companies out there shutting down their relationships with Russia. For example, New World, their Russian localization was halted by Amazon. Mm-hmm. EA has halted all sales in Russia and Belarus. Microsoft suspends sales in Russia, presumably including Xbox products. Gran Turismo pulled from sale in Russia, and on and on and on and on. Between all of that stuff and what's happening, I think what's not happening in the game, plus the other games coming out. Lost Ark is another one. I've been playing that. I like it. But I don't, again, these are games that are fun, but they're not kind of games that really should be competing with EVE. They're the temporary thing. We see this every once in a while. You'll see like WoW Classic come out, or you'll see something where it's a lot of EVE players will go take a break and go play that and come back. But this is the first time that I've seen it happening at the same time as a massive roiling conflict crisis between two major segments of the EVE Online population. And I think that's causing a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
What do you think that's legit, boss, or do you think it's more of the other games?
There's so many factors going into this. And so, you know, there are a few things that are slightly different about EVE Online, as Brisc said, compared to a lot of other games, right? Because it is a persistent universe where people build up power over a period of decades. And one of the concerns that I think everybody has is that this war may go on for a while. And as a result, these sanctions may go on for a while. And I want to make this very clear at the outset that, you know, Goonswarm has Russian players. It has Ukrainian players. It has a lot of players from Baltic states. And in the Russian speaking corporations, it's not like this is a Russian corporation. It's a Russian, like they're Russian speaking corporations that have a whole mix of people who speak Russian from all of these different countries. And it has never mattered before. And my personal stance on this is, you know, America has its problems. America has lots of problems. We're not going to go into all of those, but I can say bad things about whoever is president, and I don't have to worry about going to jail for 15 years. Personally, I blame Putin. I do not blame the players. I believe it is a war, obviously, whatever. The blocks across EVE have enacted their usual no politics rule, right? Like, you know, when there was the Scottish independence thing, whenever there was these major events in the game,
Brexit or Trump or any of that kind of stuff.
Just play the spaceships and whatever. But now we're in this very awkward scenario here where, you know, many alliances have Russian player communities in there that, again, Russian speaking, and it's a mix of all of these different nationalities, because up until Putin pulled this shit, it didn't really matter. Right. It's not like you have a corporation where people speak English and we're like, you know, show us your New Zealand passport and show us your UK passport. And you know, are you from Ireland? Right. Like, you know, players clump together and make friends internationally. One of the big appeals of EVE Online is that you can meet people and make friends all over the goddamn world. And so it just sucks, right? It fucking sucks. And one of the challenges that we are facing as a player base is, I think that certainly for the first week of the war, I didn't want to play much EVE. I didn't want to think about much EVE. I was glued to the news. And I think that there is an impact to that. I think that the Elden Ring thing is very real. I think there are a bunch of these things coming together that have been taking eyeballs off of EVE. But we are really in Terra Nova here. Like I have never seen a situation like this in terms of global sanctions impacting financial transactions, right? Like before a couple of days ago, it was like, okay, Russian players are not going to be able to play this game unless they use PayPal. Well, as of today, they can't use PayPal either, right? And so we're really seeing just a global sort of canceling because of Putin. And he can eat my ass. I want to make it very clear about that. But it's shit, because then here we are as players being sort of left to navigate this stuff that the players in these regions, they can't say fuck Putin. They can't do anything like that without risking their lives, their families, all of this stuff. And so it's shit. It's a shit situation. The fact that last night or the night before I was sitting there going like, gosh, guys, well, something's going on. Oh, hey, there's a firefight at a fucking nuclear power plant. Great. That's happening.
Yeah, well, that was during our production meeting. We were all watching that.
That's right. It was Thursday. Yeah. That was wonderful. So I'm going to say what I said on the fireside last week, which is, in the words of the immortal, who is unfortunately actually dead, Warren Zevon, enjoy every sandwich, right? You never know when things are going to go sideways. You never know when the last time you're going to chance to hug somebody that you love. You never know when you're going to get to see someone, go somewhere, do whatever, be it plagues, be it wildfires, be it earthquakes, be it Putin, be it whatever. It is frightening. And we are living in the cool zone. But, just be good to each other and appreciate life, because holy fuck, what a mess.
So you can see, I pulled up here. This is the CSM forums on the main forums. We have all kinds of threads asking about Ukraine stuff. It became a big thing, and especially when the vice prime minister of Ukraine, was calling for gaming companies around the world to stop selling products to Russian players and stop letting Russian players access their products and things like that. I think when we saw the New World, Amazon stuff, we saw EA, Microsoft, other groups not selling stuff to Russians anymore. I don't think that's a good idea for CCP. I think the Russian community is too big a part of this game for us to turn their back on them. And I don't, again, like Mittani said, I don't think this is their fault. And I don't think they have a lot of control over it. So punishing them
any control over it.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So we had a CSM meeting on Thursday. I can't get into the details, but I know I brought up a number of things that I recommended to the company. And I said the first thing they should do is they should put out a statement saying that they deplore war, all kinds of war, and that we stand by EVE players everywhere, and we hope everybody stays safe, or something like that. Because I think that's important. People keep asking, what is CCP going to say? Are they going to make a comment? And I think they should make a comment, because everybody's making comments. But I think unlike some of these companies, I think it's important to recognize that there are folks on both sides here that are being impacted and hurt. And while we deplore what's happening in Ukraine and we want it to stop as soon as possible, I don't think a small CCP, the big CCP might be able to do something about it, but not the game company.
Mm-hmm.
And try to push them to stop allowing Russian players to play EVE, especially given what would happen in the event that they did that. The way this game works, it's not like you can pause it or you can suddenly stop, all of the XIX structures, all the Red Alliance structures, pausing them, or you can't do that. So cutting out those players and not letting them play would not be fair. And the same with the Ukrainians. So what I had suggested was, in addition to putting out a statement, I would say give the Ukrainians and the Russian players all like a month of free access, depending, hopefully that this thing doesn't go on that much longer, but give them free access and make sure that their stuff is not blown up, so that they're not losing anything while they're stuck dealing with real life. Because frankly, I don't want anybody, the stress of real life is bad enough. And then to have your one hobby get completely screwed over because of shit that happened in real life, that's not fun either. So I think in this situation, this is different than somebody deciding that they didn't want to play the game anymore. They're going to take a 6-month break. This is a big deal, and I think people shouldn't be doing that. And then, of course, we keep being asked about a Plex for Good campaign, and I think that's probably not a bad idea. I would like to see CCP do something like that. I think the question then becomes, where does the money go? Who do you give it to? Do you give it to the Ukrainian Red Cross? We did a charity auction for Ukraine and Russia on Rampage Incorporated. We gave the money to Save the Children, which is an international relief agency that handles all kinds of children refugee crisis type stuff. And I'm hoping that they can find something that they can give to that I think will ameliorate everybody. But at the end of the day, this is a lot bigger than all of us. And I hope the company does make some, at least acknowledge that and do what they can to help folks that are negatively impacted by that. But at the same time, for all the folks that are demanding that CCP say fuck Putin and we shouldn't do this and fuck all the Russian players, all that kind of stuff, I don't think that's right, and I don't think that is realistic. So don't go expecting that. I think they have to be very careful, because in the end, this war will be over someday. And I don't think anybody wants to alienate a huge part of the EVE population by being jerks when it's not their fault.
Yeah. One of the things here from like a big picture geopolitical thing. And again, I'm an internet spaceship emperor, right? So when I'm talking about this stuff as the Mittani, I am a video game internet spaceship emperor. So take everything I say and all my theories with huge piles of salt, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what I think. But one of the things that is new, and I've just sort of observed this because, as we've said, Russian speaking players, because, how are you going to tell the difference at first glance if you speak English and you hear people speaking Russian on comms? I can't tell the difference between a Russian accent and a Ukrainian accent. I don't even know if there are differences in that. I'm a fucking American, and I'm clueless about this, and I'm flagpole, I'm posting that out there for everyone to see. But the communication of information, one of the things, like you see this with the Chinese player base, and you also see this with the Russian player base, is you have people that are getting international friends that are part of a younger generation that are not interested in, aren't necessarily in favor of the way that their governments are running things. And there is information transfer, there is cultural transfer, there is, hey, like I've met this person and I know them. You have people that are making friends across borders. And in a scenario where a lot of these countries are clamping down on information transfer, I think it's very important that you have access. I think that being able for Russian players to find out what's happening in the Ukraine via playing video games is important. And I think
wouldn't it be nice to get some actual good information to them via
like if you
the
go
game?
Full North Korea on an org, right? Like the thing that scares me is that, I think that, if you go full North Korea with that and you just cut them off from everyone everywhere, in theory, it's good. But in practice, we want Putin to stop fucking bombing the Ukrainians. We want to stop seeing these cities getting shelled and hit with fucking cruise missiles. It is awful.
Yes.
It is awful. I have watched probably 1,000 fucking people die on
and
television.
I'm scared to death. I have we have good friends in it,
right?
I mean, we have a whole channel set up in it to talk to our friends. My friend Neth, my friend Darth, who's in the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Manka, one of our big FCs. We have a lot of Ukrainians in the initiative. And every day I wake up and I check our iConflict channel to make sure these guys are okay. And I know I'm not the only one that's doing that. And I think we're all concerned, and we don't want to lose anybody. I don't want to lose any of my friends to this bullshit. Period. It's ugly. So we're going to be monitoring the situation. There is no easy takeaway. And one of the things that I want people to realize is that if you think that you have some sort of an easy solution to a geostrategic problem that has occupied some of the smartest people in the world over the last 30 years, congratulations, you're a fucking dumbass, and I'm not interested in your opinion. This is ugly. I don't think it is going anywhere anytime soon. And there are a lot of friends involved in this thing, and it is horrible to see not just this gaming community, but also over in the World of Tanks community. You had a situation where there's a game that started out in Belarusia, but they have a major office in Kyiv, and they had to fire their original creative director, Sergei Blutarsky, whatever the fuck his name was, for opening his mouth. Like literally, like you're an officer
officer of a corporation and one of your offices is getting shelled and you're like, yay. Anyway, fuck all that noise. It's tough time. Our hearts go out to everyone involved, all of the innocents that are being affected by this, and it fucking sucks.
It does. Again, that's all we want our friends to stay safe. So all my boys, nothing the gang, please stay safe. We are thinking about you all day long. For those of us who do the prayer thing, we're doing that too. So we're hoping that you guys get through this and that this thing ends soon. But again, this is not an easy thing. I think it is. There are folks on both sides who want to argue that this is probably not the best place for that. This is a video game about war. We fight each other in the game, and then we go have a beer afterwards. And even though when it gets heated, you know, nobody wants to see their friends and colleagues, you know, being displaced and the refugees and the damage and all the kind of stuff that's happening over there right now. Unless you are a complete and utter giant asshole, and I know there's one of them over there because he's running the place. Other than that, I don't think anybody on any of the sides of this wants to see it going on any longer. So let's pray and hope that this finally ends. We can get some peace back in our time. We enjoyed a nice 40-year or so run of no major conflicts in Europe. Be nice to have a little bit longer than that next time.
Don't have firefights in nuclear power plants. Don't do it anywhere near a nuclear power plant.
Please.
Anyway, that's it. Like, let's that's I'm done. I'm going to say too much if I keep going on this, but like, my God, the bare minimum. All right. That's it. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week. To 5 o'clock. I'm impressed because I didn't know we had a lot of little stuff, but we didn't have a ton of big stuff. So putting it all together, I thought this was a pretty good show today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Well, it worked out pretty well.
We talked about test. We talked about Ukraine and Russia. We talked about Venal and NC Dot and PL and the Pappies and all that kind of fun stuff. And you guys got to see me sweat a little bit last night, and Merkel Chen sweat a little bit last night, taking the one chip challenge on Rampage. So anyway, for the rest of the week, tonight, Saturday Night Swarm, if you guys want to come hang out with us, you can watch Mine 1 starting at 10 p.m. Eastern. That is 0300 Eve. And next week, Saturday, Meta Show. This will be the last Meta Show at 2100 because Sunday
Daylight savings time.
Daylight savings time. So next week we will be 2100 Eve. The week after, we'll be back to our normal non-daylight savings time of still 4 p.m. Eastern, but it's 2000 Eve. So it's an hour earlier. So if you come here at 2100 thinking that it's time for the Meta Show, you're going to have missed it. Now, I'll make sure next week when we talk about this to highlight this for you guys so you don't forget about it. But it is next Sunday. So next week, last week at 2100, week after, we'll be back at 2000. Anything else, boss?
I think that's it.
All right.
Yeah, guys. Stay safe. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Stay warm. Keep ASCII. Dark Shines is the best in it leader. And we will see you guys all next week for the Meta Show. Again, this has been the Meta Show for Saturday, March the 2nd, 2022. I'm Brisc Rubal, joined alongside the Mittani, and you stay classy. New Eden.